Hello guys, you're welcome to Learning C# Programming, and today we'll be looking at the variables and data types. My name is Mohammed Shoaib, and without further ado, let's go. So I'm going to create a new project. So I'm going to create I'm going to call it variables and data types. So I'm just going to say variables and data types. All right, great. I'm going to click OK. Let that load up. So good, now that we have that program loaded up, to create a variable, there is a formula we need to use. So let me just create a comment and just store that formula in. This is a single line comment. I use double slashes to create a single line comment. And the way to create a variable, you start with the variable name, data type, the data type, then variable name, and then you can put the assignment operator, and then you put the value. Then you close that. So let's go ahead and see that in action. Let's say I want to create a variable to store the number of cars in the streets. And I'll say number of cars. Let's go ahead and put that back because we can have a space. I'll say it equals 24. The number of cars equals 24. That's simple. So let's say I say another int amount of money. Specify that as 30. As the amount of money you have somewhere else. Let's say I want to create a character, a single line character. So I start with the data type. I say car, and the first alphabet, and I'm going to assign that to, let's say A. So let's say I want to store the amount of voltage on an electric circuit. I'm going to say float circuit voltage. I can use underscore to separate the values between that. I'm going to say 3.0f. What am I doing here? Why am I putting this f here? Well, there are other data types that can store precision point numbers, such as the double, let's say circuit underscore voltage. We're going to say 3.0d. And I'm going to create another data type that stores a precision point number. I'm going to say decimal. Circuit voltage. This will be equals to 3.0 M. So yeah, the reason why we have F, D, and M notations is to prevent the compiler from being confused, not knowing which one you're referring to. Because if I just say 3.0 F, 3.0, it's going to think, do you mean a double, decimal, or a float? If I didn't have these in the program, it would be fine, because it knows, but you need to specify that. So I'm just put back that F so it knows. You also notice that when I created these variables, the C is a lowercase, like the C, letter C is a lowercase, underscore voltage, but for the double, the C is caps. And for the decimal, we have an upper C, but the V is, a lower value. A lowercase, sorry, not a lower value. So you create variables, you specify the data type, the variable name, and then the size you want that to store. Another common variable type is a string, and we can store your name equals, let's say, Carolyn. So that's how you create variables. When you want to use variables in your function or your program, you can now call in that variable. Now we're seeing these green squiggly lines. The compiler is not saying there's an error, but you have to use that variable before the squiggly line goes away. So let's just use display that your name on the screen, console.write9, and I'm going to just say your name. And there I've used it in a function that displays this method on a screen. So this method called your name has been used. All these variables that haven't been used, they're going to be consuming memory. Now finally, let's look at the rules you need when creating variable names. So I'm just say rules creating variable names. So first of all, you can't start with a number. So this, if I say 9, my name equals, if I just say 9 my name, I'm going to get an error, right? So don't use a number. Another way you can do that, let me just copy this, click that. What not to do is to start with a special character like, an asterisk. That's going to give you an error. So no numbers when you're starting out variable names and no special characters. So let's just do that. I'll just write it down here. Say don't start variable name with numbers, and also don't start a variable name with a string, a special character, sorry. So I'm going to comment these out so we don't get errors. The program just comment this one out, comment this one out. So yeah, and you should also use meaningful names for your variables. For instance, if I want to create a byte called YUI BHUTG, so that's 30, and create another byte BBGED whatever, and I play the value of 23, create a value of 23. After a month, if I ask you, hey, what's the value of YUI BHYUD, or what's BBGCEGFR or whatever, when you have a lot of these confusing names, it's a problem. So give your variable meaningful names. Yeah, it doesn't hurt the compiler, and it helps you. So let me just comment that out. I can use a multi-line comment by using a slash, asterisk, asterisk, and slash, and then I can put whatever I want in between. Just cut these guys and paste them in between. That's a multi-line comment. So you can use a multi-line comment to give a proper description to your program, like when your program is doing, when you create your program. You can put all that information in a multi-line comment. You can even create a tutorial or tell people this is what your code is doing when you put it in a comment. The compiler will ignore these comments and just look at these words. So all these words in blue, they're called keywords. The compiler knows of these words. They're created and built in the program. So namespace is a keyword, class, static void, string, int, char, float, double, decimal, and string, byte. We have other structs and class. These are all, built-in names. So you cannot create these names. That's great. So remember, don't use a number to create a variable. Don't start with a special character like a $sign or an ampersand or a bracket or a modulus. And just put, we'll see your special characters. Like this, like you have $sign, like that. Don't start variable names with these. They'll give you an error when you start a variable name with that. So make sure you create a variable name that has meaning. Right, so that's it. On the next video, we'll be using these variables and seeing how we can use the assignment operators and specify them. So a variable is a temporary storage location on your computer's memory that is called when the computer is running. When you shut down the program, the variable gets discarded. But when you turn on the program, the variables get loaded to memory. Variables have properties. They have a name and they have a size. So you can specify the type or the size of that variable. Now, if I go ahead and create this number of cars as an int and I begin to make it a massively large size, I'll get an error because it's beyond the boundary of what the variable can hold. So if I change this to a long data type, you'll be able to hold that value. Okay, yeah, it can't. It can't hold that value. Let's see if the decimal can hold a value larger than this. So let's go ahead and just put that. Let's place that here and add a few more zeros. Good. The decimal is an extremely large data type. You can see I don't even know how to pronounce that. Okay, good. I've gone beyond the range. I've gone beyond the range. So good. Yeah, you can probably store this amount. If that's your money, that's very good. So a byte can really take more. I think I created a byte. So let's use this one. Let's uncomment. Let's bring this guy out. I think a byte can store more than 128. So let's try 128. Okay, can't actually. Let's try 400. Yeah, you get an error. I think a byte stops at 127 or not. The byte is really a light size. So if you want to use like the age of a human, there's a human age. You can, yeah, you can use that. You can use a byte because I don't think we can be beyond 200 except you're in a cryo chamber or something. So yeah. And remember, these squiggly lines don't mean there's an error. It means your program is good, but you're not managing memory properly. So the compiler is going to give you this yellow squiggly line and tell you, hey, what you created a variable, but you have not used it. And to use a variable, you place it in a function or you call it in a method. So just like we use the writeLine method to call this function called, call this string called your name. So with that said, I'll see you in the next video where we'll be using these data types that we created. All right, bye. Thanks you very much.